Hello, today is March 13th, 2013, and you are listening to I Think You Think, a podcast that puts a new spin on debate and discussion. I'm Justin, and on the other side of my computer screen is James.
Hello, folks.
And we are your hosts. We carry no credentials worth noting. I Think You Think is a podcast that focuses on what we, your hosts, think, but also what you think. Too many times we spend debates and discussions talking past one another and not enough time trying to learn and understand why someone thinks what they think. This is what makes I Think You Think different, because we are focused on why people think the way that they do and why we think the way that we do. James and I believe that the forum of ideas should be open to everyone, and everyone should have the opportunity to challenge and be challenged by ideas. We are not here to pass judgment, but merely discuss ideas and topics. This podcast, first and foremost, is a conversation between us and hopefully you. Feel free to email us, follow us on Facebook for future podcasts, and follow us on Tumblr for links relevant to the podcasts. The links for each of these can be found in the underbar of this video. I Think You Think is produced by StolenArts Productions and is recorded live at Fisher International Studios. Welcome back after our 2 weeks of vacation. I know I missed uploading a video last week. I was just having way too much fun over in the UK. But we'll hang on to it and we'll use it for maybe sometime when James and I are sick or something and we can't do it. But James, did you miss me?
I did, Justin. I did. It was a long 2 weeks. I was thinking about you being on vacation, me working my butt off. But, you know, I'm happy that you're back. I already talked to you a little bit. I know you had a fantastic time. And I think you should tell us a little more about the trip before we get into any serious topics.
That's fine. So we left on a Tuesday afternoon. It was probably about 4 or 5 o'clock when the plane actually would have taken off. Ish. It got delayed a little while because there was quite a bit of snow. I don't know if you remember. Well, you guys have had a lot of snow while I was gone, but there was a lot of snow. There was a blizzard that was going on that day, and so we had to wait for them to de-ice the plane. So they had to cover the entire plane in this green de-icer before we could even take off. And I'm a completely rational person. I understand, for the most part, like the physics behind how planes fly. But when you're talking about something that big going up in the air, I'm so scared to death of flying. My wife would tell you that, like, I sit with white knuckles during takeoffs and landings, and sometimes for 3 or 4 minutes during the flight, I think I'd forget to think about the fact that we're about to die.
That's it's good that you could forget at least.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you this. This was pretty nice because it was like a, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 hour flight because it was straight shot from Chicago to London, which is where we flew into. No stops, nothing. That's the way we did it. And it was really nice because even though we were in like economy class, like as low as you can pay for a ticket, there was still I felt like a decent amount of leg room. The seats felt nice and wide. My wife said that was pretty common in international flights as opposed to domestic flights. But each one of the seats we were in had their own television, right set in the seat in front of you. It was a touchscreen control. You could watch on a GPS like where the plane was and how long before landing, and you know what you were flying over. There was like probably 40 different movies to choose from to watch.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I watched Batman Rises.
The Dark Knight Rises.
The Dark Knight Rises. Sorry. I know now somebody's gonna send me hate mail. Anyway,
well, at least we'd be getting mail.
So I watched that. I started Total Recall and had to turn it off about maybe halfway through, and it was only like an hour and 40-minute movie, so it didn't even hardly last that long before I was getting sick of it. They had TV shows you could watch. I mean, it's easy to find lots of stuff to do. It didn't ever seem like a really long flight. And then you obviously got, you got dinner and you got sandwiches and, drinks and stuff. It was pretty nice. The flight was nice other than the fact that flying scares the crap out of me. So some of the things we did over there. Well, we spent most of the time in Cardiff, Wales, which Cardiff is the capital of Wales. We had chosen that place because it's also where the television show Torchwood is filmed and takes place. A lot of Doctor Who is filmed in Cardiff. One of the BBC studios is actually in Cardiff, and so that's why they do a lot of filming in Cardiff. So it was kind of like a super duper nerd kind of vacation.
Yeah.
In Cardiff, they have the Doctor Who Experience, which is basically a huge museum dedicated to Doctor Who throughout the I'd say generations, which would be true, but decades is probably a more apt way to put it. The decades of that this show has been around. They had costumes and everything from a lot of the characters from the most recent rendition of Doctor Who that started in 2005. And you do get to fly the TARDIS. So for those of you who don't know what Doctor Who is, you should go out and do the research and watch some of the TV shows and then become hooked.
It's true. It happened to me not too long ago. I'm still kind of creeping through the new stuff that's on Netflix, but I'm enjoying it.
It is good. It's really good. We spent a day in London just after we got there. We got off the plane in London and then took a bus to Cardiff to where our flat was, and then the next day we got back on the bus and headed back to London. The only thing we really did in London is we went to the Harry Potter studios, which is kind of like the Doctor Who experience, except it's Harry Potter. It's really cool because it's the actual, this is where they would have shot a lot of the Harry Potter stuff. So they have the actual set for the Great Hall, and that's one of the first things you walk into.
Nice.
And it's the actual set. So I mean, all of the seats are there, and it's really cool. I liked Harry Potter. All it really made me do going through the whole museum and everything was made me really want to read the books and see all the movies again.
Right.
So we did that. We spent a day of traveling to and from York, which is in a northernly part of England, and spent one whole day just there doing a lot of the stuff. York is kind of a touristy sort of town. Its history stretches back to the Romans. So, 300-400 AD.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there were Romans there. There's even remnants of Roman baths that you can actually go and see, because the Romans were there, and then there were Vikings, and then that's when it became Jorvik, which it was later changed into York. And in 1066, when England became England, or London was founded, or something like that, I can't remember what it was. 1066 is when England kind of became England. But it's cool because the city center is surrounded by a huge wall that we walked around, which it's basically the York Castle. It surrounds the whole city center, and then a lot of the touristy stuff is in there, so you can go and find out about the Vikings, and there's all kinds of shops you can go to, and so we spent an entire day doing that, which was really awesome. And I took over 8 gigs worth of pictures and videos while I was there. So,
wow.
Yeah. One of the days we rented a car. We drove out to the big part of the whole day was Stonehenge. We went to Stonehenge.
Awesome.
And normally you just go to Stonehenge and they've got this little asphalt trail that you walk around and take pictures of. You don't get to get really close to it. But we actually paid extra and had to come at the end of the day. And we got to go after they'd closed, us and probably there was maybe 10 other people. We all got to go in. They let us in. You get to walk around amongst the stones. You can't touch them, but that's what we got to do.
How much, if you don't mind me asking, how much more was that?
Not much. Like we're talking maybe 10 pounds more.
Okay, what's that about?
Uh,
15, 18?
it's about $16.
Okay.
$16 and change. Because the transfer rate on average is 1.6.
Yeah.
So it really wasn't that bad at all. I think it was definitely one of the highlights because I know that when I was telling people I was going to see Stonehenge, they were like, "Oh well, don't expect too much. I mean, it's actually smaller than what most people think." And when you're standing out by like that little asphalt road, they're right. It does look smaller than you would think. But then when you walk up and you see these rocks that are like 3 and 4 people tall, 25, 30 feet up in the air, it
Right.
doesn't look small at all. So I don't know if you saw on my Facebook, there's a picture of me and my wife standing underneath probably one of the tallest sets of stones in the whole thing.
Is that your main picture for Facebook
It
now?
is. It's my
Okay.
profile, and then
I just saw a little one of it because I saw it in your message feed, but I didn't
yes,
actually like open it up and really look at the picture.
and then my new background at the top of my Facebook is a picture that I took of Stonehenge.
Very nice. So, is that the first time you've been to Europe?
It is. The only time I've ever left this country, the United States, is I drove through Canada at one point. Didn't spend a lot of time there. I went to Mexico for a mission trip, and I went to the Bahamas for a mission trip. But those are the only places I've ever been out of this country. That was the furthest away I've ever been, and it was my first time to the UK, and I fell in love.
So, what were some of the weirdest or oddest things that were different over there?
Um, it's weird because we had to rent a car for our trip to Stonehenge, and we also went to Tintern Abbey, which is an old abbey that basically there's just a lot of stones left from it. But I took a lot of pictures there. I'm trying to get those things uploaded. Um, I'll I'll link those to you, and maybe I'll pick some of the best ones to post on the Facebook page so you guys can see a little bit. But the weird one of the weird things for me was when we got the car to drive it. Um, first of all, like here in the United States, like 85-90% of all cars are automatic. Over
Right.
in the UK, like 85-90% of all cars are manuals. Like it's weird to have an automatic. Now I drive a manual, so that's not a big deal. However, you sit on the other side of the car.
Right. Right.
You don't shift with your left hand.
I think I might cross over.
Oh, you might reach over with your other hand.
Maybe. I guess it wouldn't make a difference. Either way, it would be awkward.
And it's weird. That was a weird thing to get used to. I mean, driving a standard, even if you drive standard, those who drive standards know that even when you get into another car that's also a standard, it doesn't drive the same. It doesn't feel
No.
the same. The clutch feels different. Everything feels different. It's like driving completely different. That you don't get that experience with anything that runs with a clutch. You do, and so you're already dealing with that, and then also having to shift with the wrong hand.
Right. And in the wrong order.
Yeah, yeah. You start way outside instead of inside and work out. Start outside and work in. The nice thing, because I wouldn't have been able to do it if they had done this. The nice thing is that the pedals are still in the right spot. So you still drive with the right and push the clutch with the left. The brake's still in the middle.
Thank God for that. Oh my God.
Nope.
I didn't even think about that.
Nope.
Oh, I wouldn't get anywhere. I just keep hitting the brake. Why aren't we going anywhere?
And so after maybe a half hour, because we drove a lot, we drove probably over 150 miles between the Tintern and Stonehenge, and then we also went to Bath in the UK, which has a huge Roman baths that you can go and look at. Well, obviously not the actual Roman baths, but the what's left of them.
Right, right.
But so after maybe a half hour, 40 minutes, I really didn't even notice that I was driving on the other side of the road. I didn't notice that I was sitting on the other side of the car. Those things kind of faded away. They just seemed right because it that wasn't as big a deal. The thing that drove me crazy, got me so nervous, is that the roads are like 30, each lane is like 30-40% smaller than the lanes here in the United States.
30 to 40% smaller?
That's the way it felt because
Yeah,
it's so tiny. And we would be driving, and they don't have a lot of highways like
right.
out here. You know, they have a few highways, but for the most part, it's like long stretches of two-way roads that just kind of wind through the countryside, and they're not very wide. They're not much wider than two cars. And people, when you get into the towns, like the towns, people park on either side of the road, and that's just what they do. And so there are times when you're driving through the town where there's not really much more room than you and the car and the car that's parked, and there's another car coming the other direction.
Right.
Now in the towns, it's like 30-mile-per-hour speed limit, but out in the countryside, it's 60 miles an hour. And like if you're not going 60, then you start to get a train of people behind you.
Right. Right.
And it's not just straight shots. It's not like driving through the desert. You're coming up and over hills. You're banking around things. You don't see anything around corners. And you're driving in these super tiny lanes with cars flying past you at 60, 65 miles an hour. You're doing 60, 65 miles an hour. Every single time a car would fly past me, I thought we were going to die.
Man, forget international travel unless you have a driver.
I know. It was scary. By the end of the day, I felt a lot more confident about it. You get used to like the roundabouts. They have loads and loads of roundabouts there. Basically, we call them circles here.
Right.
Instead of having an intersection, they have a roundabout.
Right.
You don't come to a stop and wait for your light and then go. You just slow down, join in the roundabout, and then get off at the direction you want to go. So it makes it easier because you don't have to wait, I don't know, 45, 50 seconds, a minute and a half sometimes at an intersection, or even longer for some intersections. You down. Some intersections did. Some roundabouts did have lights, but you really didn't wait long. But it was. You get used to it after a while. I actually kind of enjoyed the roundabouts a lot more than intersections.
So what else? Anything else that really you're like, wow, that is so different?
Um,
You did bring your cell phone, right? I mean, you didn't really use it, but you brought it.
I took my cell phone. We thought about buying like burner phones for a while we were over there, but decided to just do cell phones. Uh, it was that was weird for me just because I didn't have access to data like I'm used to.
Right.
When we were at the flat, or we found free Wi-Fi out there. There's not a lot of free Wi-Fi in the UK. Like you'd think that there would be a lot more, but there isn't. They have lots of paid Wi-Fi, like everywhere. Like you could get Wi-Fi just about anywhere you want, but you'd have to pay for it.
Right.
But they do have free Wi-Fi at places you'd think, like some taverns and pubs would have it. Some of the fast food restaurants. There were Starbucks everywhere.
Okay, I'm going.
We walked everywhere in like Cardiff and some of the other and when we walked around York. And if I see a Starbucks maybe every 5 or 6 minutes when I'm driving, that doesn't seem like they're that close together. But when you see a Starbucks every 5 or 6 minutes when you're walking, then they're close together.
Oh yeah,
Like we
definitely.
see a Starbucks on one corner, and then when we'd get to the next corner, there would be another Starbucks.
I could move there. That's exactly the place I want to live.
And they have like cafes and coffee shops everywhere too. They're not coffee shops; they're tea. They is what they drink really over there.
Right.
But oh man, but yeah. So I mean, I texted a little bit. I used my phone once or twice just to kind of keep the cost down because texts were 50 cents to send, 55 cents to receive, and $1.29 a minute to talk on the phone. But when you think about the fact that I'm taking a phone issued in the United States halfway around the world using it, and it's only costing me $1.29 a minute to talk to somebody, that seems pretty reasonable.
Right, right. So did you just give a like a friend-wide ban on texting? Don't text me.
No,
Don't text me.
$0.02 wasn't that bad. They would
Yeah,
know that I wasn't going to be texting them back unless I thought it was an emergency. I mean, 5 cents to get a like. I thought about going through and turning off texting from a lot of my automated texting things,
right.
but I was thinking, I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to get maybe 5 to 10 while I'm over there, and that's 25, 50 cents.
Yeah.
I'll deal with it. It
Yeah.
was funny when I would get a text from like Redbox telling me, "Hey, you got a free Redbox to rent tonight," and I'm like, there's no Redbox here in this country."
Yeah. That is not going to work out for me today.
So, um, no, it was a lot of fun. I really, really, really want to go back. I was ready to come home just because I really wanted to sleep in my own bed, shower in my own bathroom.
Right.
I was looking forward to getting back to work. Because when I go on vacation for a long time, after a while, I kind of want to get back to work and do something that's not just vacation.
Well, yeah, I mean, vacations can be wearing in their own right. You know what I mean? Depending, especially when you have a very active one. You know what I mean?
Um, and so by the end of the vacation, I was ready to come home. Um, After being home for a day, I'm ready to go back.
Yeah. I was wrong. I should have never come home.
It's
Grab the kids, taking them this time. We're done.
fun. I would really recommend it. It really wasn't that expensive. The plane tickets were only about $1,400 for the two of us for there and back for round trip.
Right.
I mean, the hostel that we stayed in York was like $16, £16 a person.
Wow.
But it's a hostel, and we were sleeping in a room there was 14 beds in the room, and there was only five of us.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a weird thing for me. I've never been in that kind of a scenario, so that was kind of weird for me. Uh,
Yeah. At least there were five of you and not just like two of you,
yeah, yeah,
you know? Because statistically, I think on average that would always give you numbers against any other individual group that might be staying in the same hostel.
yep. And what's
Yeah.
nice is we found a shared bathroom on the second floor. It was a floor above us that was not the bathroom in like each one of the hostel rooms had their own bathroom, but they were like public toilets. They were kind of disgusting.
Yeah.
Found this like uh, this public bathroom that was on the floor above ours that didn't have a specific for any specific hostel room. And it was nice. Like you'd go in and there were two sinks and there was like a fireplace in there. And then off of that, there were two little rooms that had a toilet and a shower in it and everything that you could lock the door. So you would go in there and you could get ready and everything. And it was nice and clean versus the like nasty, disgusting thing that was in our hostel room. So we just went upstairs and used that.
Right. Right. That's awesome, man. I mean, it makes me want to go. Like I've wanted to go to Europe for a while. There's a couple areas of Europe that I would like to see. Sweden being amongst them. I don't think any of our listeners or you are aware of my passion for wanting to go to Sweden. Just admit that right now. But it makes me want to go even more because it sounds like you really had an interesting trip above and beyond, the specific interesting places you went, the Doctor Who, the Harry Potter, Stonehenge. It seems like just even the just just being there and the normal things, driving and walking in the streets of the city, were interesting in their own right.
Oh yeah, I mean, in the United States, we don't have places where you can go to a church that was built in the 1500s.
No.
Drink a beer in a tavern that was built, 15, 1600s. It was built 500 or 600 years ago. That just maybe if you go to like places like Boston, you might get close to it. Cities in the United States, but really you don't have that here. You don't have walls that have been standing since the time when the Romans were around.
Right, right. Well, the history of that era just stretches back farther than anything we have here. I mean, it's just a fact of the way it is. And I spent my 30th birthday in a bar in New Haven, Connecticut, that has been open since like the late 1800s, mid late 1800s or something like that. And that's old. I mean, for America, for a business to still be standing that long, that's
Yeah.
old. But I mean, that's nothing. I mean, that's not even touching on the 1500s. It's a fraction of the age of um, some stuff you can come across in Europe.
Yeah. And it's weird to stay like we went to Cardiff Castle while we were there and to live in a town where like you just drive down the street and bam, there's a castle, you know.
Yeah.
Just like that's the kind of stuff that's just it floors you. Even after 2 weeks of seeing that, like it's still every single time I would see the castle, I was like, that's so awesome.
We're moving in there.
Well, it's a museum now, so it's kind of hard to move in, but
uh, you know.
it and the Cardiff Castle was tiny compared to the York Castle. The York Castle was huge. It was huge. I mean, there's really not much left of it. It's pretty much just the walls, and then there's a keep further inside the city that we went to as well. But wow, I mean, it's just there's so much history there. The people are generally pretty nice. I mean, I wouldn't say any nicer than most of the people you'd meet in the United States.
Did you deal with any people that were, rude to you because you were American?
Not really. We got a lot more people mistaking us for Canadians than Americans, actually.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people like we would talk to them, and they would immediately, obviously, notice we had a funny accent because we didn't sound like this.
Yeah.
Well,
And they would think you're a Canadian?
yeah, they would say, "Oh, well, where are you from?" And we'd say, "Oh, well, we live just outside of Chicago, my wife and I." And they're like, "Oh, well, we thought you were Canadian." I'm like, United States, but we did have a Canadian with us.
Yeah.
Uh,
I would be interested to know why they assumed you were Canadian as opposed to American.
I don't know. I don't know. Um, but I mean, in our group of five, well, it was six for the first couple of days because there was a girl that had come down who lives in the UK, came down from Birmingham, and spent time with us because we went to a comic and anime convention during the first weekend we were there.
Man, you geeked it up.
I told you, man.
I'm proud of you, man. Wish I could have been there with you. That's a comic and anime convention. Doctor Who, Harry Potter, and Stonehenge. That's like four solid generations of geekdom represented right there. It's amazing.
It was super geeky. And
Oh yeah.
and then like because Torchwood is filmed in Cardiff, like we went to a lot of the locations that they used for Torchwood, and the flat that we were staying in Torchwood was like a 2 minute or 3 minute walk from like the main what they call in Torchwood the hub, where the
Right, right. Where they like disappear and come back and walk. Yeah.
yeah like that kind of stuff, and so it was super geeky. But my wife's a huge geek, and all the girls that went along with us were all super huge geeks. So geeks and nerds, and so it was super geeky, super nerdy. Um, but yeah, like the first day of the comic and anime convention, we all dressed up as Star Trek characters. Um, and since it was me and just a bunch of girls, we did a gender bent crew. So like my wife dressed up as Captain Kirk, but a female version, and then there was a female version of um, Bones and all of those other people.
Right. So you were
I was Nurse Chapel because my choices were Nurse Chapel, Yeoman Rand, or um,
Uhura?
And so I decided to dress up as Nurse Chapel because I couldn't really pull off the dark skin of Ahura.
So, have you been to like a comic convention at all in the States?
I have not.
I was just interested to know if it was similar, like how different it might have been overseas than it might be here.
Yeah, I don't know specifically, and I've never been to any like big ones like Comic-Con or anything like that. I was actually surprised at this one at how small it seemed. Like there was one. It was in a hotel, and there were two big like dining room areas that were full of tables of people, and then there was a small room upstairs that had a few more tables, and then they also had like a little meeting room where they had a lot of their like talks and stuff. We only went to like two of the talks, only because they really weren't super interesting. They were
Right.
we're having more fun just kind of walking around in our costumes. Because yeah, the first day we were Star Trek, and then the second day, my wife and her friend dressed up. My wife, her friend, um, or my wife and two of her friends dressed up as the characters from Priest from the movie.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I dressed up as Thor with the character with the costume that I'd been working on since I don't know June of last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Um,
The picture I saw that the arms looked awesome, dude. Like the work you put into that, like it was some sweet detail work from what I could see in the picture.
well, that actually, what I did is I bought a like $40 Thor costume online, and then when we got the costume home, it had the arms already as they were, with them being all puffed up and everything, which was the whole reason I wanted that costume. And it was all the one whole piece that you would wear, but the chest was also puffed up, and then had a crappy kind of um, cape attached to it. What
Right.
we did is we pulled out all the stuffing for the chest area, and then I freehand drew the armor onto like a stencil, like a big gigantic piece of cardboard, and then I bought some uh, carpet padding. Basically the stuff that goes under carpets that make it feel
Right.
soft. Um, and I cut out my armor from that, and then I drew the actual armor pieces that would attach to it, and then I cut those out of smaller like foam, and I painted it all and glued it together, and then we took um, I can't think what they're called, draperies. I can't. It's not draperies though. Curtains. We bought a thing of curtains that was like the right red, and then my wife sewed it. Cut it down and sewed it, and we attached that to the armor. Um, and yeah, and then other than that, the only other things were I used some foam for the arm guards and the leg guard, the shin guards.
And then you transported that all to the UK with you.
Yes, yeah. Well,
How much of your luggage did that take up?
it didn't take up that much actually, because the actual chest piece, we could lay it in, and we could put things between it and then fold it over. And then the cape was detachable by Velcro. We made it detachable by Velcro, so we could take that off and fold that up. That was pretty easy. Um, the
And you just stuff underwear and socks in the arms, or what?
No, 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 because the arms were all it was all just plush. I mean, it was all just like stuffing.
Oh, okay, so that you could like lay them flat or whatever.
Because then the under leotard type thing that the original costume was, we could just fold that up, and just got folded up and put in with the um the rest of our luggage. But yeah,
That's-
on international flights, at least with British Airways, you could check one bag; it didn't cost extra, and then you could take two carry-ons, one actual carry-on, and then for men it would be a briefcase, and for women it would be a purse.
Right.
So I had one carry-on that basically was more like luggage that I didn't keep anything in as like a carry-on, and then I took a little a little messenger bag that I kept my computer in and my chargers and the things I would need pretty much walking off the plane.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I mean that was the costume I worked a lot on. Probably I don't know 24, 25 hours worth of work on it, if not more.
Wow. Well, we are at the halfway point here of our return podcast, or your return podcast. I guess we're both returning to the podcast. You return to the United States. Um, so we should probably wrap this up, and then we'll be back in a couple days or a couple minutes, depending, to do the second half of our podcast.
All right, sounds good. We will see you guys in a couple days then.